Hi, I'm Susan and welcome to Susan Stanley Stitch in Time and the final tutorial for the Mary 1840 Doll Quilt Experience project. I'm so glad you're with me. I'm so excited that you've made it this far in the journey, and we're going to add the final piece to this doll quilt for future generations to enjoy. I have provided in the kit a piece of linen for you to stitch your initials or Mary's name or whatever is meaningful to you. If you would like to do more detailed label, you can use a piece of muslin or a plain fabric and a fabric friendly pen. And I recommend testing the pen out before you attach your label to your doll quilt to make sure it doesn't run or bleed. I'm going to share with you these two options and show you how to attach that to your quilt, and you will be done. So let's get started. I want to show you how to do this cross stitch label when you've never ever cross stitched before. There are people doing this project who have cross stitched and have never quilted. There are people doing this project who have quilted and never cross-stitched. All right, so in this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through 3 different demonstrations. The first one is just to give you the concept of cross-stitch. What is cross-stitch? What is actually happening when you cross-stitch? The second example is going to be an example of cross-stitching on a larger weave of fabric. It's actually going to be a piece of burlap, and you'll be able to really clearly see the lines in the weave of the fabric. And the last example is going to be showing you how to stitch on linen with the thread that's provided in your kit. So I'm doing this for those of you who have never ever taken a cross stitch before and really need that extra confidence to get started. So here I have just a printed out rendition of the warp and the weft of the weave on fabric on your linen or your burlap. Now, you don't get this overlap effect on the canvas that I'm going to show you, but basically it's showing you the vertical and horizontal threads. And so if you're going to make a cross stitch and you're going to stitch 1 thread over 2, you're going to come up here with your needle, and you will count over 2 threads and then up 2 threads. And so this will be where your needle comes in first, and then it's going to go down here. All right, so now your needle is on the back of your fabric. And so to make our cross-stitched box or our stitch, we're going to be contained in this area here. That's actually where we make our X. So then we're going to come up. We've gone up, down. So we've got bottom left, top right. We're going to come up again, bottom right, and go down, top left. And the reason I'm saying this is you want to attempt all your stitches in this pattern. If you use a different pattern, if you've learned a different way, that's fine. This is for people starting out. Now, this is how I make my X. Some people start in a different spot, but I always start here in the bottom left, and then I go into the top right. And then I come back out the bottom right and into the top left. This forces your threads, or makes sure that your threads are all going in the same direction. So this thread will be on top, and it will always be going at that angle. Your next stitch, that thread is going to be going in the same angle. It just gives a much more finished, polished, professional look to your stitching. And so what you're going to be doing at the end of this is looking at this alphabet chart that came in your kit. And you're going to be, if you're stitching Mary 1840, you're going to be picking those letters and numbers out from the chart, and you're going to be reproducing them onto your fabric. And so if we made our first X here, if we're starting the letter M, and we made that X right there, then our next X is not going to be right next to it. It's going to be diagonally made next to it. All right, so it would come down to and start on the diagonal and go right here. Right, and then you would just continue making X's down that line using the same pattern. Bottom left, top right. Bottom right, top left. All right, so that's how you transfer this image onto the fabric. And you can see that the M that I stitched is the exact same shape and count as the one on the paper pattern. And so here we go. So how do you approach this whole thing called cross stitch when you've never done it before? Cross stitch literally is making an X. Now, I'm going to show you using this piece of plastic mesh. It's a grid. All right? The linen fabric in your kit, and all fabric for that matter, is woven on with a grid. You get a final grid. You get a warp and a weft. So you have threads that run up and down, and you have threads that run side to side, horizontal threads and vertical threads. In your kit, you have some red 103, number 779, and you have a number 28 needle. This is the packet it came from. It's a tapestry needle. All right, so that's what you will use. But let me show you, if you've never ever made an X in linen before, I want to show you how you do that. The hardest thing, I think, for people starting out in cross stitch is to find where this box is that you're making an X. All right, because you don't make an X in just one of these little squares. And I'm gonna zoom down in a tiny bit so we can see this super clearly. Okay, you don't make your X in one of these squares. Your square is going to start where you come up. So let's say this is where we come up with our needle. And I'm gonna demonstrate this with the needle in a minute. You're gonna come up with the needle through this hole in the linen. Right now we're doing it in the canvas. You're going to go over one thread, two threads, and you're going to go up one thread, two threads, and you're going to go in this hole. And that's the first leg of your X. All right, let me do that again. Let me hold it up close and show you. Your needle is going to come up through this hole, and you're going to think of this as a little box, and the little box is 2 threads over, 2 threads up. That would be 2 threads over that way and 2 threads up. This is your box right here that I'm outlining with the needle. Okay? So you're going to come up through this hole, down through this hole. Now, people travel in all different paths to make their X. This is how I make my X. If you watch other tutorials, somebody might start here coming up. So don't be confused. You will find the path that works best for you. This is just how I like to do it. All right? So let's do that. We're going to come up through the hole in the bottom. And I'm using yarn and a big darning needle. We're going to leave a tail behind underneath, a big long tail. And we're going to go down into that hole. That is the first leg of your X. All right, now remember, we're working in this little box to make our X right here. This is our box. So we've come here. Now we're going to come up again. We're underneath. We're going to count over 2 threads. All right, so that's a thread right there. This is a thread, and this is a thread. Okay, so let me mark that with the pen. So we're going to come up in this hole now. Okay. So I'm going to pull this down again, and we've counted over and we come up. All right, you can probably see now where that's going to go to make an X. Okay, it's going to go down 2 threads and over 2 threads, and it's going to go right in there. And I'll just make a little okay. There's your first X. Okay, and I like to work right to left. So depending on where the next X needs to go to make your letter, if you're making the M for Mary, you're probably going to go down. So now we're going to make another X, but the X is going to be below this one. Okay, so we're not going to start here, obviously. We're going to start 2 threads down to make the first leg of our X. And we're going to make the first leg of our X that goes over 2 and up 2. Oops, sorry, I went in the wrong hole. Okay, so we go 1, 2 threads down. And there's the first leg. And then we go 2 threads over, 2 threads up. We're going in that same hole. We're sharing the hole with the first X. Okay, so we have the first leg of that X. Now we're going to go into this same hole here and come up. And to complete the X, we're going to, from this hole, we're going to go over 2 and go down. Okay, so we're working in a box, and the box contains 2 threads. All right, let's try another one. Going down, this is where we left off, right here. So we're going to go down 1 thread, 2 threads, come up. All right, so our box is this right here. So we're going to go over 2, up 2, right into that same, sharing that hole again. Now, there are so many techniques to cross stitch that I'm not showing you on here. I'm just showing people who have never made an X into fabric, into linen before, how to do it. So this is just very, very beginning. So we're going to go down 2 and over 2, and we're going to go right in that hole. Okay, let's say we want to keep going in the same pattern, starting in the bottom left, going up to the top right, and then in the top left down to the bottom right. We want to keep that consistent because that keeps the threads going in the same direction. All right, so let's see what happens if we were going to go to the right. What would happen? Well, we'd come up this hole, and guess what? Our stitch would come out. Okay, let's put it back in. So if you're going right next to this stitch, because you have to do that to make your letter, there are lots of ways to make a path, but for today, this is just very basic. You're just going to go, instead of going in at the bottom right, which would be right here, because that'll pull your stitch out, we're going to make that first leg of our stitch, we're going to do it backwards. We're going to go up here, and we're going to make our X, our first leg backwards, okay? Now, we're not in any danger of pulling out our threads if we continue in the same path that we always have. So we'll just go right over here to the top left, bottom right. Okay, so now you can see my threads are all going the same direction. They're still going the same direction. Okay, if I wanted to keep going in that direction, I would have to continue to reverse my X. Now let's just run our thread a little bit, carry our thread a little bit. Let's pretend we're going to the left now. We're going to make an X this way. The beauty of planning your path, and I'm definitely not going to get into that, but if you can plan your path so you don't have to make any reverse X's, it's much better. And if you're going to make an X right here in this box, so remember it's over 2 and down 2 makes your box. So we're going to go from this place, we're going to go over 2, come up, over 2 and up 2 to make the first leg. And then we're going to, from that point, go over 2 to complete our X in that little box. And we're going to go down right there. Right, so just to be sure, so this, if we go to another one, it's going to go over 2. This is our box that we're working in. All right, now you can say, okay, Susan, I can see that mesh really well. I don't know if I can see the linen. I use magnifying, readers. I use high-powered readers to do this because there's no other way for me to see it either. So let's make another X. Come up. So that's over 2 threads. So our little box is two in all directions. So we'll go down. And then we're going to poke up. And down. Okay, now you're probably wondering, how do I finish this? What do I do? I'm done. Let's say my letter is finished. All right. What I'm going to show you, because you're starting out, there's so many different ways to do this, but for starting out, we'll turn over to the back. Now it's kind of got a little bit tangled there. I'm not used to cross stitching with yarn, to be honest. Okay, we're going to take our needle and we're going to run the needle under the stitches that we've made in one direction. So we'll go, let's see if I can get this there. We'll go off to the side in one direction. And we do need to clip our tail too. Okay. And then we can go back in another direction. You want to go under stitches that you've already made so you don't have big blobs of red thread everywhere. Okay, and then you can clip that off. That's secure. All right, and get that out of the way. And then this tail that we made initially, we're going to do the same thing. We'll rethread that. And we're going to run that back and forth. Now, you should do this for each letter so that you don't have red tails visibly from, oops, I didn't catch all that. Okay. You want to do this for each letter so that you don't have big, long tails like this hanging down, because those will be visible from the front through the fabric. If that doesn't bother you, this is your first experience, but I just want to give you that as a warning. So we'll weave it one way through our stitches and then back, and that should secure it. Okay, you don't need to make a knot. Okay, so that is basically what you're going to do, but you're going to do it on linen. So as a next step, I'm going to show you what it looks like on a piece of canvas. I bought some burlap. Now this is going to be a little bit more like your experience with the linen. So you're going to plan your path. Now you have enough room on your linen to make about 9 symbols. So that includes this space. So if you would choose not to do Mary 1840, you want to do your name, and you have a long first name, that's probably all you're going to get on there. If you have a long last name, you might want to decide to do your initials and the year. It's up to you. If you're an experienced cross stitcher, you can do whatever. Anyone can do whatever they want. I'm just trying to help those who have never ever cross stitched before. All right. So I didn't show you this on the canvas, but this is another way you can start, and it's called a waist away knot, and it's a good way for somebody starting out to approach their cross stitch. And so we're going to make a knot, and I just make a quilter's knot because That's what I do out of habit. So I just wrap it at the top of my needle, pinch it, and pull it through to make a knot. You make a knot however you'd like. All right, so I'm going to come in anywhere on my canvas. I mean, I'm just going way up there. And so now my tail starts here. It's going to get trimmed off at a later date, but right now this is just holding my thread so I can start my letter and not worry about it. So my box now is 2 threads, just like before. So I'm going to come up right here to start my letter. Okay, I've come up. All right, so you can see now I've got 2 threads across that are going to make my box, 2 threads over and 2 threads up. And then I go in to make the first leg of my X. Okay. All right, so where that went in, we're going to count 2 threads over to come up to make the second leg of our X. And then we're going to go 2 threads down and 2 threads over to complete that X. Right? Okay, let's make another one below. Here's where we stopped. Right here where my needle's coming out, right there. That's where our first X ended. So we're going to go 2 threads down from there. And you can see this weave of the fabric right here is a little bit thicker. Don't let that throw you off. That's 1 thread, 2 threads. Okay, I can go up. Okay, and my first leg is going to go on this angle. And so we're going to go 2 threads over and 2 threads up. And go in. Okay, and then to complete our X, we go in at the base of that X that's on the top. And then we go 2 threads down and 2 threads over, and that takes us right here. Go in to complete that X. Okay, you can see that the stitches are filled in quite a bit more because I have this heavy yarn on a tighter weave. The threads on this, the grid on this is much closer together than the grid was on the plastic. All right, let's do another one. Down 2 threads from, here's our start. I'm going to go down 2, come up to make our box, and over 2 and up 2 to make our first leg, because we want our stitches on the diagonal. All right, to finish that final leg, we're going to come up right here, and then we probably, you don't have to count down at that point. It's going to be over 2 from this point because we want to make a little box. Our little X is going to mark a box. Okay. And then if we're going to the right, we have to reverse the first leg of our stitch. We have to go from the top of this one over 2, just like we did on the canvas. And down, so we've reversed that first leg of our X. If we're going to the right, we're going to make the second leg of our X the same way we did every other stitch, because we want all these legs of the stitches to be going in the same direction. Okay, and if you're going to go to the left, because remember, if we went to the right and kept our path the same on that first leg, we would pull the stitch out. So we're going to go from here over to the left now, and we're going to go over 1, 2 threads. And we're going to make an X. There's the first leg of it. And we're going to go over 2 threads from that and up. And we're going to make the second leg of our X. Okay. Right. So there's our crosses in the burlap. We're going to finish those off on the back just like we did on the canvas. Now let's see what it looks like. Much nicer having a waist-away knot, because see, this was contained and I didn't get it caught up in my stitches. So that's kind of nice. So we're going to cut that away. And we're going to run the stitches under, because let's, say we've finished a letter here. We're going to run the stitches under, going in one direction. We're going to run the thread under the stitches, going in one direction and then back in another to secure it. Now that one's secured. We'll trim that. And this waist-away thread needs to be secured. So we're going to get rid of that. We don't need this knot. The knot can come out. And you can see that you need to make your waist-away a little long enough so that you can run it back and forth. So I'm going to go in, and there is a trick if you run out of, like this is getting really short, you can't turn it around and poke it in from the point of the needle. You can poke it in from the eye. Okay. All right, that is done. Okay, so we've looked at doing it on the plastic mesh. Now we looked at it on the canvas. Now let's take a look at doing this on the linen. It's the same exact thing. There is a grid on the linen. Now you're going to need, if you need readers for this, grab your readers, grab your glasses that are going to make this work. I have my 28 needle like I showed you. Going to thread that up. And basically we're going to do exactly what we just did with the yarn on those other 2 materials. We're going to do that with this silk thread on the linen. Get that. There we go. Okay. Okay, so I like to make a quilting knot. I just wrap it 2 or 3 times, pinch it, pull the needle up. Okay, so we'll come in, let's say we're going to start right down here. So let's put our waist-away knot right there, and then we're going to find where we'd like to start. I'd like to start kind of in the middle of the linen. I kind of want to stitch across this middle band so I know I have plenty of room. Now when you're charting out your path and you have your nine letters or numbers or whatever you've decided. You can start comfortably about an inch in from the edge of the linen I've provided for you. If you're nervous, you can fold your linen in half and start from the middle out, going to the left, and then the middle out, going to the right, and stitch your letters that you've chosen to use. I've given you an alphabet. You can stitch whatever letters you want, whatever works for you. Okay, so we're coming up now. Look at that. It's the little boxes are there. They're just tiny. You can do this. Okay, we're going to go over 2 threads and up 2 threads. And we're going to go in and we have the first leg of our X. Now let's check it because it's tiny. Let's see, we've gone over 2 and up 2. Yep. Okay, now we're going to go over 2 for the second leg of our X. We're still on the top. We're at the top left. Okay, I've got the first leg and I've got the beginning of that X. So now I'm going to make sure I'm completing my little box. And to complete my little box, I'm going to go in right there. All right, so that's down 2 and over 2. Right there. Okay. My next X, I'm going to go down 2 to make the first leg. And there's 1, 2, and up 2. And then I'm going to go in at the bottom of my first X. I'm going to go down 2 and over 2. Hey, look at that. Just little teeny tiny X's. Down 2, over 2, to make the first part of the X. Okay. We're going to go down 2 linen threads, over 2. It's going to go right in there. Okay. I'm going to go to the right. Remember the right, we have to reverse direction on our first leg. So we're going to go from the top of that X over 2 to make the first leg of our X in the opposite direction. Okay. And now we're going to complete that X. Okay. And then if we go to the left, we're over 2, and we're going to make our little box. Our box goes over 2, up 2, to make that first leg, and then over 2 to go in at the top, because I'm going every single time, bottom left, top right, top left, bottom right, except when I do the first leg going to the right. There's always an exception, isn't there? Okay, so to finish this off, My nice waist away knot has kept those threads out of the way. I'm going to run my threads in 2 different directions underneath. We're going to go up and then we'll go back, and I can trim that. And I'll do the same thing with my waist away thread. I'll knot that up. Okay, and I'm going to use the eye and go forward, go up, oop. I'm going to go up and back, and there we go. So there is the beginning of a letter. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns or problems, please contact me. I want you to have success with this. If you are trying cross stitch and you're trying to make your label and it's just not for you, you are more than welcome to write out a label on a piece of plain fabric and stitch it onto the back. But please, please label your project, because this is a special memory. All right, I want to show you how you can attach your label onto the back of your doll quilt. And so I think we'll just do a simple turn of the fabric. Turn it under and press it, and turn it under and press it, and then do the same on either side. And then just pin that in place, making sure all these edges are tucked under neatly. You know, as you pin it, you'll get all those edges under neatly. And then I would just do a simple stitch, the same as you did for your binding. Just take your needle up into the fold and start stitching it, trying not to get through to the front, trying just to stay on the back. All right, so that's one way to address it. Another way to address your label is to pull some threads. Don't pull too many. We're not going to learn any fancy stitches. This is just an easy beginning way to attach your label. All right, so you can get that nice little fringe going on the edge. Don't get too close to your stitching. And place it on your doll quilt, and then do just a nice little running stitch. Just an up and down stitch or a whip stitch all the way around to hold it in place. And I think either of those would be very effective in attaching your label. And I hope you will take the time to, frequently people skip this step, but I hope you'll take the time to identify yourself as the maker with your initials, or to identify this as Mary's quilt, and have some kind of written documentation attached so that you remember your experience and the journey that you've taken with me in stitching. I know for many of you this was your first time, and I'm so proud of you. So pleased you stuck with it and overcame all the hurdles that come with learning a new skill. And I can't wait to see your final projects. Please be sure to post them on #first_stitches so everyone can enjoy the beautiful products of this journey. In the meantime, I hope you will make time for stitching, and I will see you again in the future with more fun projects. Thank you for joining me.